God is speaking to you right now in this very moment, and this is not an accident that you clicked on this video, because out of millions of videos across the internet somehow your eyes landed here and your heart felt something pause inside you, as if a quiet voice whispered, "Don't skip this message, because heaven has been trying to reach you in ways you did not expect, and through doors you did not notice, and through silence you thought meant absence, but it was actually protection and guidance. Working behind the scenes while you were asking why things were not going the way you planned, and while you were wondering why certain people suddenly disappeared from your life, and why opportunities closed just when you thought they were finally opening, and why your heart has been carrying a strange mixture of pressure, hope, confusion, and anticipation at the same time, because what you thought was delay was actually divine alignment, and what you thought was rejection was actually redirection. And what you thought was loneliness was actually preparation for a season where God is about to place you somewhere your past could never follow, and your fears could never survive, and your doubts could never control you again, because sometimes God speaks not through loud miracles but through quiet interruptions in your routine, through unexpected thoughts that repeat themselves inside your mind, through moments where something tells you to stop and listen and breathe in. Wait and trust even when nothing around you makes sense. And if you are feeling right now like something inside you is shifting, like something is ending and something new is quietly beginning, then understand that this is one of those sacred moments where heaven leans closer than usual and whispers, "Pay attention, because what is coming next in your life will require courage, faith, patience, and a willingness to release what you thought you needed in order to receive what God knows you actually need." And there are people watching this right now who have been asking God for a sign, and you did not realize that this message itself is the sign you were praying for, because sometimes the answer you are waiting for does not arrive as a dramatic miracle, but as clarity slowly replacing confusion, and peace slowly replacing anxiety, and strength slowly replacing fear, and doors closing that you kept trying to reopen even though God already decided they were not meant for your future. And maybe recently you felt something pulling you away from certain conversations, certain environments, certain habits, or even certain relationships, and you could not explain why, but deep inside you sensed something changing, and that feeling was not random, and it was not emotional weakness, and it was not overthinking, it was direction. Because when God begins preparing you for a new chapter, He often removes what cannot go with you before He reveals where you are going, and that process feels uncomfortable because your heart wants familiarity, but your destiny requires transformation, and transformation always begins with separation from what used to feel normal. And maybe you thought something was wrong with you because your circle started getting smaller, and your plans started changing, and your expectations started breaking. But what if nothing is wrong with you, and everything is actually aligning for you right now in ways your eyes cannot yet see? Because God does not remove people randomly. He removes confusion, He removes distraction, He removes delay, He removes limitations, and sometimes He removes comfort so that you can step into calling and purpose that comfort would have prevented. And there is someone watching this who keeps replaying the same question inside their mind, asking, why did that relationship end? Why did that opportunity disappear? Why did that door close? Why did that person leave without explanation? And the reason you keep asking that question is because your heart is still looking backward while God is already preparing something ahead of you that requires your focus, your attention, and your trust. And this message is here to remind you that what left your life was not stronger than you, it was not better than you, and it was not meant to define your future. It was simply not assigned to stay in the season you are entering now, because there are blessings that only arrive after certain chapters close, and there are answers that only appear after certain voices become silent, and there is clarity that only grows after. Confusion loses its influence over your decisions, and maybe lately you have been feeling tired in a way that sleep cannot fix, because it is not physical exhaustion, it is emotional weight from carrying questions without answers and hopes without results and prayers without visible change. But what if that tiredness is not a sign to quit? What if it is a signal that you are closer than ever to breakthrough? Because before God changes your circumstances, He strengthens your spirit, and before He opens the door you have been praying for, He prepares the version of you that will walk through that door without fear, without insecurity, and without hesitation. And sometimes preparation feels like pressure, because growth stretches places inside you that comfort never touched, and faith develops strongest in seasons where certainty disappears and trust becomes your only direction. And if you are still here listening right now, then understand this is not coincidence. This is confirmation that God has not forgotten you. He has not ignored your prayers. He has not overlooked your struggle, and He has not delayed your future without purpose, because heaven never wastes pain, and heaven never ignores persistence, and heaven never abandons someone who keeps believing even when evidence is missing. And maybe the reason this message feels personal to you is because your spirit recognizes truth even before your mind fully understands it, and your heart knows when God is speaking, even if your situation still looks the same on the outside, because divine change often begins invisibly before it becomes visible, and silently before it becomes undeniable, and slowly before it becomes unstoppable. And there is something powerful happening in your life right now that you cannot measure yet, but you can feel it shifting your perspective, your patience, your expectations, and your direction. And what you are feeling is alignment, because when God starts moving things into place, He begins by moving your heart into position first, and once your heart is ready, your path begins opening in ways that make sense later, even if they feel confusing now. And the truth is, some of the delays you experienced were actually protection from outcomes that would have hurt you, and some of the silence you experienced was actually guidance, teaching you how to trust without constant reassurance, and some of the losses you experienced were actually preparation for gains too significant to arrive while your hands were still holding on to what was temporary. And there is someone watching this who almost gave up recently, who almost stopped believing recently, who almost convinced themselves that nothing was changing and nothing was coming and nothing was happening. But if that were true, you would not be here hearing this message right now, because God always reaches people before they quit completely, and He always sends reminders before discouragement becomes permanent, and He always opens windows before darkness convinces someone there are no doors left. And right now, this message is one of those windows opening in your life, reminding you that what is ahead of you is greater than what is behind you, and what is forming around you is stronger than what tried to stop you, and what God is preparing for you is bigger than what you lost, and bigger than what you expected, and bigger than what you imagined when you first started praying for change. Because sometimes the answer to your prayer is not exactly what you asked for, but something far better than what you could have designed yourself if you had seen the full picture from the beginning. And that is why this moment matters right now, because God is speaking to you not through fear, not through pressure, but through reassurance, telling you to stay steady, stay faithful, stay patient, and stay open, because the sign you asked for has already reached you, and the shift you have been waiting for has already started, and the story you thought was ending is actually turning into the chapter that will prove to you that every delay, every silence, every closed door, and every unexpected change was guiding you toward the life you were always meant to step into. Sparkles. Listen carefully, because this is not random, and this is not coincidence, and this is not just another video passing through your screen. This moment is being allowed by God for a reason, and the fact that you are still here watching means something inside your spirit already recognizes that Jesus is trying to reach your heart right now, and He does not interrupt people's lives without purpose. He steps in when something important is about to change, when something hidden is about to be revealed. When something heavy you have been carrying silently is finally about to be lifted from your shoulders, and maybe lately you have been feeling confused without explanation, maybe you have been feeling distant from people you once trusted. Maybe doors that once stayed open easily are suddenly closing in front of you, and you keep asking yourself why everything feels different, but what you did not realize is that God has already started moving things behind the scenes for your protection and for your future even before you noticed anything changing around you. Jesus wants you to understand that some separation is not rejection but preparation, because there are relationships that cannot go where God is taking you next, and there are conversations that cannot exist in the next chapter of your life, and there are environments that cannot survive in the atmosphere of the blessing He is about to release over you. And even though it hurts right now, and even though it feels confusing right now, what is happening is actually mercy in disguise, because God sometimes removes what you were afraid to release yourself, and He does it because He can already see the path ahead of you clearly while you can only see today. There is something powerful happening in your life right now that you cannot fully understand yet, but your spirit can feel it, and that restless feeling you have been experiencing lately is not anxiety without reason. It is the signal that heaven is shifting something around you, and when God begins to shift your direction, the first thing He often changes is the people around you and the places you feel comfortable staying in, because comfort sometimes keeps you stuck, and Jesus never allows His children to remain stuck when their destiny is calling them forward. You were not created to stay where you are forever, and you were not designed to carry the same weight year after year, and you were not meant to keep repeating the same painful cycles over and over again. And that is why God has started moving things even when you did not ask Him to, because sometimes the prayer you never spoke is the one He answers first, since He already knows what your heart has been whispering quietly at night when nobody else could hear you. Think about the moments recently when something inside you told you to walk away from a situation even though your mind tried to convince you to stay, or the moments when you suddenly lost interest in things that once excited you, or the moments when certain conversations started feeling heavy instead of peaceful, because those were not random emotions. Those were signals from God guiding you step by step away from what could have delayed your purpose and closer to what will strengthen your future. Jesus is reminding you right now that delay does not mean denial, and silence does not mean abandonment, and distance does not mean punishment, because sometimes God becomes quiet while He is working the hardest behind the scenes, arranging opportunities you cannot yet see and protecting you from battles you never even knew were forming against you. And the truth is, there are things that could have harmed your peace deeply, but God stepped in before they reached you and redirected your path without you even realizing it. You might be wondering why certain plans did not work out the way you expected, or why certain people suddenly changed their attitude toward you, or why some doors closed right when you thought they were finally opening. But what you cannot see yet is that every closed door has already been replaced by something better that is waiting at the exact right moment to appear in your life. And the timing of God is never late, even when it feels slow from your perspective, because He sees your entire story while you are still living one page at a time. Jesus is asking you not to lose faith right now, because what looks like confusion is actually transition, and what feels like loss is actually repositioning, and what seems like uncertainty is actually preparation for clarity that is coming closer with every passing day. And the reason this message found you today is because God does not want you walking into the next season carrying fear from the last one. There is a blessing forming around your life right now that requires courage from you and trust from you and patience from you, because God is building something stable instead of something temporary, and He is preparing something lasting instead of something emotional, and temporary excitement cannot compare with the peace that comes from a plan designed by heaven. Jesus wants you to remember that He has never left you alone even during the moments when you felt forgotten, and He has never stopped listening even during the nights when your prayers felt unanswered, and He has never stopped protecting you even during the times when everything around you looked uncertain. And the truth is, you are closer to a breakthrough than you realize right now. Something is shifting, and something is aligning, and something is being restored in ways you cannot yet fully see, but soon you will look back at this moment and understand why this message reached you exactly when it did, because God never speaks without purpose, and He never calls someone's attention without preparing something meaningful ahead of them. And this is your confirmation today that Jesus is still guiding your steps even when the path feels unclear, and even when the future feels quiet. He is already standing in the place you are walking toward. Have you noticed that lately something inside your spirit has been waking up in a way you cannot explain, like a quiet voice calling your name when everything around you feels uncertain? Because this is not an accident, and it is not your imagination. This is the moment where God begins shifting your direction even before you understand what He is preparing ahead of you. And the reason you are still watching right now is because heaven did not bring you here by coincidence but by design, and Jesus wants you to hear this message before the next chapter of your life begins unfolding in ways you never expected. Because there is something changing around you that you cannot yet see, but your heart can already feel it moving. You thought the delay meant God forgot about you. You thought the silence meant your prayers were not heard. You thought the closed doors meant the opportunity was gone forever. But what if those closed doors were protection instead of rejection? What if those delays were preparation instead of punishment? What if the silence was actually God working behind the scenes where your eyes could not reach, yet your future was already being rearranged for something greater than what you asked for? Right now there is a shift happening in your life that most people around you cannot recognize, because spiritual movement always begins quietly before it becomes visible, and that is why lately you have felt different around certain people, certain conversations, certain environments that once felt normal to you but now feel heavy and out of place. Because God is separating you from what cannot follow you into your next season, and He is making space for what is meant to arrive next. There are blessings already moving toward you that you did not even know to pray for, yet God prepared them anyway, because His plan for your life was never limited by your doubts or your fears or your past mistakes. And the truth is, Jesus has been standing beside you through every moment where you thought you were walking alone. Even in the nights when your faith felt weak and your strength felt gone and your heart felt tired from waiting longer than you expected. This message is reaching you now because something important is about to change, and heaven wanted to make sure your spirit was ready before your situation catches up with what God has already decided. And when this change arrives, you will suddenly understand why certain things had to end, why certain people had to leave, why certain opportunities disappeared even though you prayed for them to stay. Because sometimes God removes what you thought you needed so He can give you what He knew you deserved all along. There is a reason your heart did not give up even when everything around you felt uncertain. There is a reason your faith kept whispering hope even when logic told you to stop believing, and that reason is because Jesus was strengthening you quietly while preparing something powerful that is closer now than you realize. Somebody watching this right now has been carrying a silent prayer inside their heart that nobody else knows about, something you stopped talking about because you were afraid it might never happen. But God is saying today that your silence did not cancel your miracle, and your waiting did not cancel your promise, and your weakness did not cancel your purpose, because what He spoke over your life cannot be erased by delay or doubt or difficulty. You were not meant to stay where you are emotionally, spiritually, or even physically in life, and that uncomfortable feeling inside you lately is not confusion but direction, it is not fear but transition, it is not uncertainty but movement, because heaven is pulling you towards something new even if your mind has not caught up with your spirit yet. There are people who misunderstood you, people who underestimated you, people who walked away from you when you needed them the most, but what they did not understand is that God sometimes removes human support so you can discover divine strength, and when He becomes your foundation, nothing can shake what He builds next in your life. Jesus is reminding you right now that your story is not finished yet, and your breakthrough is not behind you but ahead of you, and your best season is not something you missed but something you are stepping toward even now while you are listening to these words, because God never brings someone this far just to leave them halfway through their purpose. Something unexpected is being arranged in your favor even as you watch this moment unfold. Something you could not force, something you could not predict, something only God could prepare, and when it arrives you will look back at this exact message and realize it was not random that you were here today but confirmation that heaven was already speaking to your future before it appeared in your present. And the reason your heart is feeling this message so strongly right now is because Jesus is closer to your situation than you think, and He is already working inside circumstances that look impossible from your perspective but are completely under His control from heaven's view, and very soon you will begin seeing signs that what you prayed for is no longer just hope but reality moving closer step by step into your life. Listen carefully right now, because what you are about to understand in this moment is something most people ignore until it is too late, and God did not allow you to reach this part of the message by accident but by divine timing, because there is a shift already happening behind the scenes of your life, and even though you cannot see it yet, and even though people around you may still doubt you, and even though your situation still looks the same on the outside, heaven is already moving in your favor, and what feels like silence is not rejection but preparation, and what feels like delay is not punishment but protection, and God is asking you in this very moment to trust Him deeper than you ever have before, because something powerful is being rearranged for your future, and the doors that refused to open before are not closed because you were unworthy but because they were not meant to carry the blessing that is now coming toward you. And this is why your heart has felt different recently. And this is why certain people suddenly became distant, and this is why certain plans unexpectedly stopped working, because God was quietly removing what could not survive where He is about to take you next. And even though part of you questioned why things changed so quickly, the truth is heaven was responding to prayers you cried when nobody else was watching, and tears you tried to hide from everyone around you were already seen by God, and nothing you whispered in pain was ignored, and nothing you asked in faith was forgotten, and right now while you are listening to this message, something is already shifting in the spiritual atmosphere around your life, and what once blocked your path is beginning to lose its power over you, and what once discouraged your spirit is starting to weaken, because God is strengthening something inside you that people cannot see yet, but they will soon recognize it when your life begins to change in ways they never expected. And the same people who misunderstood your silence will soon witness your breakthrough, and the same situations that once confused you will soon make perfect sense, because God never wastes your waiting season. He uses it to prepare your strength, He uses it to sharpen your faith, He uses it to position your future, and what you thought was the end of something important was actually the beginning of something greater than you imagined. And this is why you must not lose hope right now, because the next chapter of your life is closer than it appears. And even though fear tried to convince you that nothing was moving forward, God was already opening paths you could not yet see, and preparing connections you could not yet recognize, and arranging opportunities that will arrive exactly at the right moment, not early, not late, but perfectly aligned with His purpose for you. And what is coming into your life is not random, it is intentional, it is designed, it is protected, and it carries the fingerprints of God all over it. And this is the moment where your faith must become stronger than your doubts, because heaven is responding to your persistence and your obedience and your willingness to keep going even when answers were unclear. And the truth is, God is proud of you for not giving up when things became heavy, and for continuing to believe when evidence was missing, and for choosing hope when fear tried to speak louder inside your mind. And because of that obedience, something unexpected is about to appear in your life in a way that will remind you that God never abandoned you, even when the road felt lonely, and even when people misunderstood your journey, and even when you questioned whether your prayers were being heard. The truth is, heaven was already preparing your next step, and very soon you will recognize why everything had to happen exactly the way it did. And when that moment arrives, you will realize that what once felt like loss was actually protection, what once felt like delay was actually positioning, and what once felt like confusion was actually God quietly guiding you toward the life He planned for you long before you even understood your purpose. And that realization is going to change the way you see your past, your present, and your future forever. Before this message continues any further, you need to understand something very important right now, because what is happening in your life at this exact moment is not ordinary, and it is not random, and it is definitely not invisible to God. Even though there were nights when you felt like nobody understood what you were carrying inside your heart, and there were mornings when you woke up wondering if things would ever truly change for you, and there were moments when silence felt louder than answers, and waiting felt heavier than moving forward. But what you did not realize during those difficult moments was that heaven was already working behind situations you could not control, and God was already preparing something bigger than what you asked for, something stronger than what you expected, and something more perfect than what you imagined. Because sometimes when God is preparing a powerful breakthrough, He first removes the distractions that would have stolen your focus, and He removes the people who would have slowed your purpose, and He removes the opportunities that looked good but were never meant for your destiny. And even though those removals felt painful at the time, they were never punishment, they were protection. And right now, while you are listening to this message, there is a quiet transformation happening inside your spirit that is making you stronger than the version of yourself that existed only months ago. And even though you may not fully recognize it yet, your Thinking has changed, your patience has grown, your faith has deepened, and your heart has become more prepared for what is coming next. And this is exactly why the enemy tried so hard to discourage you recently, because whenever God is about to release something important into your life, opposition always increases first, and confusion often appears before clarity, and pressure often arrives before promotion. But what the enemy did not expect is that you would keep believing what the enemy did not expect is that you would keep praying. What the enemy did not expect is that you would still be standing here listening to this message right now with faith still alive inside your heart, and because you did not give up, something powerful is already being released into your future, and very soon you are going to notice doors opening that nobody else could open, and opportunities appearing that nobody else could arrange, and peace entering your heart in a way that cannot be explained by circumstances. Because when God decides it is your time, nothing can delay what He has already approved, and nothing can cancel what heaven has already signed over your life. And this next season you are stepping into is not going to look like the seasons you survived before, because the struggle that once defined your days is being replaced by purpose, and the confusion that once followed your decisions is being replaced by clarity, and the fear that once whispered inside your thoughts is being replaced by confidence that comes directly from trusting God's plan even when you cannot yet see the entire path ahead. And the truth is, God allowed you to walk through everything you experienced not because He wanted you to suffer, but because He was building a strength inside you that will carry blessings you once prayed for, and responsibilities you once dreamed about. And the version of yourself that is emerging right now is stronger, wiser, calmer, and more prepared than ever before, and people around you are going to notice the change even before you explain it, because something about your presence is already shifting, and something about your mindset is already aligning with the purpose God created you for. And this is why you must not return to old fears, and you must not return to old doubts, and you must not return to old habits that once slowed your progress, because what is ahead of you requires a stronger version of you, and God has already been preparing that version. Step by step, moment by moment, prayer by prayer, and very soon something is going to happen in your life that confirms everything you have been feeling deep inside your spirit recently, something that reminds you that your waiting season was never wasted, and your prayers were never ignored, and your faith was never invisible to heaven. And when that confirmation arrives, it will not only strengthen your belief, but it will also remind you that the path God is guiding you toward right now is leading directly into a future that is already protected, already prepared, and already filled with the blessings you thought might never come, but were actually being saved for the exact right moment in your life.